And he couldn't have been, and he grew up on watching Fright Night when he was a kid. So they were nervous on the one hand, but on the other hand, they were, they wanted to make a wonderful movie. I think they did a nice job. I get a lot of complaints from fans who talk about, no, there's nothing like the original. Of course not. It's the original. I mean, that's the fact. On its own merits, I think it was a fine movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
Let's go right back over here. Yeah.
What is it?
Nicholas.
Hi, Nicholas. I'm getting old. We got along. I mean, I sort of talked about this a little bit earlier. We got along really well. It was the chemistry was great. As I said, we spent a lot of time together. So we ate together, we drank together, we played games at night because there was nothing to do in Sheffield. So we hung out, we played charades, we played crazy games. The guys would sit around and sing doo-wop songs. Mandy and Chris Guest and Rob and I tried occasionally to join in because I was in a rock band in high school. So it was a great experience. And Andre was a sweetheart. He was just a lovely human being. It's important to me for people to understand, and I know a lot of the wrestlers who I talked to here who worked with Andre as wrestlers mentioned, first of all, what a great person he was, but also what a difficult life he had. And because he was, this will illustrate it. I've told this story any number of times. These people, I'm sure you read it in Carrie's book, but at the time I had 2 kids. And they were 3.5 and 2, and I was going to England for a while to work before they could come over because we were going to be in this town in north central England with nothing to do. And so I described what I was going to do, and I said, I'm going to be in a movie, and there's a princess in it, nothing. And then there's a pirate, nothing. And there's a giant. A giant, Daddy? There's a giant in this movie? Really? A giant? What is it? How big is the giant? Is it as big as a house? Is it as big as a car? How really big is it? When he comes through the door, does he hit his... Well, that was it. Whenever I would call home from England, I'd want to talk to the kids on the phone, and as soon as they pick up the phone, hi, Daddy, where's the giant? Have you worked with the giant yet? Is he as big as a house? Is he as big as a car? Can you walk it? It got to be exhausting. So they came over after we were moved to London to shoot at Shepperton Studios. And so I went to Andre and I said, do you mind if I bring the kids by the set someday when I'm not working and you are, to say hello so that they can see the giant? And he said, oh, of course, boss. So we get to the set. It was the scene where he's rescuing Indigo from being drunk. He's on the Brute Squad and he's, trying to bring Indigo back to life. And Andre had a trailer that was probably half the size of the stage because he couldn't get into the makeup trailer. And he couldn't get into the seat. It was 7 feet 6 inches and he weighed over 500 pounds. It was huge. His hands were that big. And so I walked up the steps. I had one of my kids in my arm, and my former wife had one in her arms, and we walk up the steps, and we turn the corner, and Andre's sitting all the way down at the other end in his chair at the makeup table. And he got up. And my daughter, who's in my arms, she's screaming, and her sister is screaming, and now they're both screaming at the top of their lungs. And we rushed them out because I was so embarrassed, of course. We take them to the car, and I said, I gotta go back and apologize to Andre. And I go back to Andre's trailer and I said, Andre, please, I'm so sorry that they reacted that way. And he said, that's okay, boss. They either run to me or run from me. And that was what his life was. That he spent his life either having people in Japan. He was a good luck charm. People had to touch him all the time when he would tour the world, when he'd go to Japan. Other places, people would literally run screaming from him. So, and his attitude about it was essentially, you know, what am I going to do? That's my life, boss. That's the way it was. And so he handled it with great grace and dignity and equanimity. He was very nice to fans. He was never put offish. He was great. He was an amazing guy. And sadly missed.
Let's go in the cap right there, fourth row back.
Thank you. Thank you. You're very kind.
Right over here. Yes, you. Yes. You're the one that's saying me. Yes, you.
Very clever. What was it like working on Dog Day Afternoon? What's your name? Carolyn. It was a great experience because, you know, the people who were doing it were the best. It was written by a guy named Frank Pearson, who won an Academy Award for the screenplay for Dog Day Afternoon. The movie ended up being nominated for 8 Academy Awards. It was the year of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which won almost all the awards that year. And it was a great experience. It was a terrific script. Sydney, as I mentioned, Sydney Lumet rehearsed. We rehearsed for weeks and weeks. I had a relatively small part in the movie. I was only on screen for something like 10, 11 minutes, something like that. And it was, at the time, you know, a number of people said to me, well, aren't you worried? This was at a different time in our lives. This was before the LGBT movement. This was before Will and Grace, which was a major cultural change in the country, I think, personally. And, you know, if you were in show business, you dealt with people of all kinds all the time, including gay people. And at the same time, gays were not represented on screen very often. And this was a kind of incendiary version of a gay relationship in a way. A guy goes in to rob a bank to get a sex change operation for his boyfriend, is the basic plot outline of the movie.